So
watch the ones that we're missing right now. Right.
Yes, that's right. So.
Make sure you watch your own and hit likes.
Oh no.
No, thank you.
It's so hard to go back and watch because then you're like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done
I
that.
know.
Or, oh, I can't believe
Why didn't someone tell me I had lipstick on my teeth? It's like, do I have lipstick on my teeth? I say.
Has everybody checked?
I know.
These crazy Invisaligns. It's called a friend check, is what we call it at our house. If you've got something in between or whatever. All right. Are we ready? Excellent. Well, my name is Kim Borchers, and I am the Assistant Director, I should say Associate Director of Civic Engagement here at the Policy Circle. And I want to say welcome to those who are joining us here in the room and our panel, and those who are joining us online. And I'm excited to help facilitate this group because my heart and passion is civics, but it's also political engagement and what we're going to be talking about today as to the nuts and bolts of guiding women in running for office and also addressing many of those things why women aren't running. And I am delighted to have, first of all, I'm going to introduce Abbie Hodgson. Abbie is the director of the Ascend Fund at Panorama. And in her role, Abbie works to increase gender equity and political representation by investing in organizations that remove barriers and support women running for office. Abbie brings more than 2 decades of experience in politics and has worked on more than 100 campaigns at all levels. And how often do you color your hair? No, I'm just saying. We all know what happens after campaigns. And she's been doing that across the country, and she even ran for office herself. So, Abbie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
We have Mia McCord Garza, who is the president of Hourglass Strategies, LLC, and it is a government and public affairs consulting firm here in Texas. Prior to founding Hourglass Strategy, Mia served as a president of the Texas Conservative Coalition Research Institute, where she was the organization's first Hispanic and first woman to serve in this capacity. And among her extensive leadership roles, Mia notably serves on the advisory board for the LBJ Women's Campaign School. Thank you for being here, Mia. And then Anne Hathaway. Anne and I know each other very well. I'm looking for some tidbits, new stuff, Anne, for me. Anne is the current executive director of the Richard G. Lugar Excellence in Public Service series, an organization committed to propelling women into politics. She also is the president and founder of Hathaway Strategies. It's a public affairs consulting firm in Indianapolis. And her career spans a wide array of political engagements with notable appointments as Chief of Staff and Regional Public Director for the RNC, Republican National Committee, and Assistant to the Vice President and Scheduling and Public Liaison at the White House for Vice President Dan Quayle. That had to have been a cool job.
It was a great job.
For sure. So Anne, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
And I want to thank you again for all being here and a part of the conversation. Abbie, I'm going to start with you. So since your fund's mission is to invest in organizations that help women run for office, I'd like your take as to why do you think women hesitate running and how can they overcome those issues or fears?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kim. And one of my favorite quotes is that men run for office to be someone and women run for office to do something. So I think starting with why women run for office is incredibly important, right? As I talk to women, it's oftentimes a spark, something that happens in their life, and they say, I have to stand up, I have to do something. But even when they feel that spark, there's several things that can often come into play. And I oftentimes put them into a couple categories. 1, women don't feel qualified to run for office, and 2, they don't feel confident in their abilities to do so. I think oftentimes about one woman who was immensely qualified to run for the state legislature. She had decades of experience. She was a teacher. She was a mom. She was exactly the type of person we wanted making education policy. But she said, oh, I could never run for office. I don't know parliamentary procedure. I don't know Robert's Rules of Order, right? And I'm going, no one does. That's just, we don't operate that way. But so women oftentimes think to themselves, I don't have what it takes. I need to take one more class. I need to learn more about economic theory. And they just make this long list that are barriers that they create for themselves. But then the confidence piece is something that, yes, may be tied up in that qualification piece. It may be societal, but oftentimes it's exterior factors. When I ran for office, there was an older gentleman who also decided he wanted to get into the race, and party leaders said, Abbie, you need to wait your turn. And so having people tell you that you shouldn't run can be really damaging to your confidence. So really understanding that you belong in the space, that we need your voice, and think about the consequences if you aren't there, I think are really important steps to getting engaged and taking that next step to explore your political journey.
That's great, wonderful insight. Now, Mia, in your current role with the LBJ Women's Campaign School, have you found that when women do decide to run for office, they have to run differently than a man? And I don't mean to corner you into something. And if so, what are those differences?
We were just talking about this
Yes, we
earlier. Just really quick, if I may, the LBJ Women's Campaign School started in 2020 by this amazing, young, energetic woman named Amy Kroll, and she had this vision to bring some of the campaign schools you see nationwide to the South, because we did not have anything. It's a bipartisan, so it is, these are women that we bring together from all different backgrounds. And we are going into our next cohort, which is really exciting to have seen this program grow and get bigger. It started during COVID, so of course we had to pivot. But to answer your question, it's a lot of what Abbie was talking about, but also we juggle so much. It's never the right time. I even look internally at my family and my husband, and he's super supportive, but it's when he has things to do, it's just kind of you go and do them. It's not, and as women sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? I have X, Y, and Z on my plate, so I need to make sure that I can handle that before I take on something else. And it really is, there's never going to be a good time. You're never going to be in the perfect place to run for office. If you have the fire in your tummy and you have a passion and are ready to go, it's just going to be one of those things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to jump. Because, unfortunately, our male colleagues don't really have that same mentality. It's just a different it's a different way of thinking. There's an American university study that actually shows that women are less likely than men, going back to the qualifications, to think that they are qualified to run for office. If you're in this room, if you're here today, if you're listening online, guess what? You're qualified. That's it. You're qualified.
Right. Well, and I think also when women run, we have to go, okay, if I go to that campaign event, who's going to pick up the kids from
Right.
basketball or ballet? Who's going to take the dog to the groomers?
What are the kids going to eat for dinner?
Yeah, and nothing against dads, but dads aren't thinking about that, right? Necessarily. And
Right.
so I think those are those
Yeah.
things that you juggle and
mom guilt is real. Mom guilt's real. I used to be, when I was young and didn't have kids, I used to be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about that. My kids are going to be just fine. I was fine. My mom worked. It was fine. But mom guilt's real, man. I'm leaving this afternoon because my daughter cried for 30 minutes because I'm not going to her field trip tomorrow. So guess what? I'm on the last flight out because, if mommy can be here, I'm going to be there.
you're going to be in a field trip. That's great. And that's okay. And you've been mentoring women for decades.
You're making me sound old.
That was, okay. You were 10 when you started helping women run for office. And we understand that one of the biggest components of running for office is fundraising. And many people don't think about it until they've already put their name on the dotted line, right? How would you advise women to be successful in the area of fundraising?
I'm going to go back to the last question for just a second. So there may be people listening today that are saying, I'm not the candidate, but I want to be a part of this. The way you can be helpful to a candidate is to child sit, to make food and put it in the refrigerator, to help relieve that mom guilt. And that is real with regard to what do women do better than anybody? We network. And we have relationships and we take care of each other. And so the ability to do that makes all the difference. And that leads into the fundraising. The first thing is you got to know your why. Why am I running? And so many people say, well, I want to be important or I want to be elected, but they don't know what they want to accomplish. If you know why you want to run and what you want to accomplish, then you can put together a plan as it relates to fundraising. And that means identifying the goal that you need with regard to votes to win and how much money do you need to collect those votes in order to get to 50+1 to win. If you do that and set yourself a goal for the entire campaign, a monthly goal, a weekly goal, and a daily goal, as women, I know that you will set out to accomplish that. And you will surpass your goal. And it's the art of making a deal. Once you go in and you get that first $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 contribution, you will fuel your flame with regard to going back and saying, I want more, I can do this. We get too caught up in the fact that we think that fundraising is about parties and receptions and that if we throw an event, the money will come in the door. The real money is raised on campaigns by going and sitting in people's offices, talking about why you want to run, what you're going to do, and being able to get them to write a check. The other thing we as women do is we ask for a check that's too small. We do the same thing when we negotiate salaries. We do the same thing when we ask for titles. Stop. You are worthy and you are worth it. And ask for what you want and need. Let them tell you no, but go back for it again.
Love that. That's like good.
I'm not passionate about this at all.
I love it. Now, Abbie, so we'll sit it down there. I could have gone back that way too, but
I'm so excited.
I know, I can tell. Can you feel how excited she is? Abbie, you said in your first answer that this is a space that women need to be in. So when you say that, what do you mean by that? That this is a space that women need to be a part of that process. Can you explain that, build that out just a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have to ask ourselves, what are the consequences if we're not at the decision-making table? If other people are making all of the decisions about our lives, who gets left out? And it means that we get left out. So I think that to me is the most important aspect, but I also think that women are a huge additive in all of our elected bodies. I oftentimes think from my personal experience that women govern really differently. And if we're really unhappy at where our nation is at, if we dislike the polarization, for me, and I don't know about the rest of you, but the answer is more women, right? Women are only 1 in 3 elected officials at all levels of office right now. What would it look like if women were 50% of elected officials, or gosh, 2/3 of elected officials? Like, I think we'd have a lot more civility, we'd get a lot more done. One of my favorite statistics is not just that women introduce and pass more bills than men do, but legislatures with more women, everyone collectively is more productive. So you see this in your homes. Just think about if you could translate that to government. What could we accomplish if you were at the table making the best decision for you, your family, your community, your nation? To me, it's just really inspiring to think about where we would be as a nation with more women.
That's a good vision. I love that. Mia, so if someone thinks they want to run for office, who should they seek support from? And what are the first steps? I would say first steps is participate in the Civic Leadership Engagement Roadmap at the Policy Circle. And after that, then, who should they reach out to and explore what opportunities so they can actually effectively run for office?
Absolutely. So did you know there are 518,000 different elected offices in the United States?
Wow.
At all levels of government, and that doesn't include appointments and other ways. Appointments even at the local level, the city council, your city councilman has to appoint local citizens to tons of boards. I think the first step is obviously to get involved. So, if you think you want to run, if you think you want to get involved, find a campaign, find someone who's running that you want to help out. If you're interested in serving on a board, get involved that way. Mm-hmm. And then, rely on organizations like Policy Circle, who have great resources. WPLN, Women's Public Leadership Network, tons of resources. And then obviously I would love for you to apply to the LBJ Women's Campaign School. Our application's open soon. It's mostly virtual. It was one of the beauties of COVID is that we pivoted from a 1 week in-person event to a virtual event. And so we can recruit women from across the country. You dedicate your Saturday mornings once a month to be introduced to some of the most kind of just experts from around the world, around the country, people that you probably would have never crossed paths with, come and do sessions with all of the women. And aside from that, you're surrounded by a group of women. What I have loved about all of this is that bipartisanship. You're learning how to communicate with each other across party lines because your groups are, what they are.
Right.
But you're really learning how to have those civil conversations. It's almost a training within a training that you don't even realize is happening as you're participating in this. But apply to a campaign school if you're not feeling like you have the tools you need, and just seek out other women who will be honest with you and will be your cheerleader, and see what they're thinking.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's building the network, right? Because
Absolutely.
you don't run
Yeah.
for office by yourself.
Right.
That's right. It's a team.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So Anne, we've already discussed fundraising. So give me 3 other fundamentals that you have to have in place to have a successful campaign.
Okay.
And fundraising is not included.
Okay. I can do this.
We already did this.
I can do this.
So we're going to give you 4.
I'm going to go back to what I said before, the why. You need to know why you're running. And it's always one of the most frustrating things for me to hear a candidate who can't tell you why they want to be elected. So be able to articulate that in 3 different formats: a 30-second elevator speech, a 3-minute elevator speech, and a 5-minute elevator speech. You're going to need them all because if there are people that you're going to run into that need to know it in 30 seconds, and if you can't say it, you've lost them. Yeah. There'll be other people who'll want to know more, and that's your 3-minute. And then there are going to be times that you're going to have 5 minutes and you need to be able to say that. Additionally, get used to being bored with yourself. If that means you have to change the order, if you have to flip them around, if you need to whatever you need to do, because stick to your principles, stick to your core beliefs with regard to what those 3 to 5 things are that you're going to say in your elevator speech. In addition, have somebody around who can tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You need to have that person who can kick you in the butt when you think you're right and you're not, and that they can tell you the truth and they can push you out the door or can have that heart-to-heart. I think the other thing is, Ty, I could do 5 things or 10 things of what you got to have.
Do 5, Ann.
But is not only have a why, but also have a vision. So what are you going to do when you get there? Because if you're running for something and believe in what you're going to do, it will continue to help you get out of bed and go campaign every day. The 4th thing is have a campaign plan and a campaign budget. Too many people get into campaigns and they don't have a budget goal, finance goal with regard to what they want to raise, and they don't have a plan, and they have no idea what their vote goal needs to be. So whether that means going to someone who's run a campaign before, your state party, your county party, sit down with someone who knows the ABCs, the building blocks of campaigns, and figure out what your vote goal is so that you understand why it's important to go door knocking, why it's important to go to have phone banks, and so that you can build the coalition you need for victory.
So let me ask you this question. Do you think that you should do all that before you put your name on the ballot?
No. And this is my.
I didn't know what she was going to say.
No. So I say yes and no. The answer is.
You sound like a politician.
I know I do. So it depends, because if I tell you you have to have all that done by Monday, chances are you're going to talk yourself out of running between now and Monday. And that's why I say no, because at the end of the day, if you're passionate about this and you want to do it, then go for it. And there are people that can help you put the pieces together to get there. I'm going to single out Dawn Lang. Dawn Lang had a hard time deciding what she wanted to run for. You don't know this, I don't think, but Kim and I disagreed on what you should run for. She won, oh, by the way. But that being said is that you can, this is not meant to be disrespectful, you can hem and haw around about it, and the answer's not going to change. Pull up your big girl panties and go for it. And I'm gonna also say, and this is also directed to another one of my colleagues from Indiana, is sometimes you don't get what you want on the first time or the second time, and that's okay. This is a process, and sometimes it's about timing and it's about opportunity, so don't give up. If there are offices you want and you want to run, go for it. Sometimes you may get that break, and I think to the Fort Worth mayor that we heard from today, who got told, and back to what Abbie said, oh, honey, wait your turn, or you're not. This isn't your time. Sometimes we make our time, and sometimes our time comes to us. But you know yourself better than anybody, and if this is what you want to do, go for it and figure out a path to get there.
Love that. We're going to do a lightning round, and I'm going to let you keep the mic, and then it's the same question, okay? So this is what I call return on failure, your ROF instead of your ROI. What advice can you provide that came from your own failure in a campaign or a campaign in which you were advising someone?
So this is actually easier than you think, because when you win a campaign, you don't have time to think about how you won, and you're so full of yourself because you won, and you think you didn't do anything wrong, and but you're on to the transition, and you're on to governing, and you're on to moving on. When you lose elections, you think about it a lot, and you wallow. And you think about how you would do it differently. I think that for me, it's a number of things, but I will limit myself to one. It's trusting myself with regard to knowing what I know and being willing to give that advice. And that goes back to being a women campaign. Is your instinct, that thing in your stomach, that thing on the back of your neck, you know what's right or wrong, and trust your instincts with regard to doing what you think is right as opposed to what the politically correct thing is. It may be the difference maker in a campaign.
Love that. Mia?
And I'll follow up with that and say, trust the people you're paying to advise you, and then follow up and make sure they're doing things correctly. Very anecdotally, but I've had two situations where we had paid consultants. One sent an unfinished mailer out that still had blanks on it.
Oh my.
And another one put up a commercial with a hired actor who was supposed to be a rancher who had his cowboy hat on backwards. And in Texas, big no-no. So little things like that, they have 10 other candidates they're helping, most cases. So, they work for you. Make sure you can trust them, but still verify all their work.
Love that.
So true.
So I think to build off of both of those, one thing that I want to tell you is that I've lost and I've wallowed. And what we do as women is that we blame ourselves. It's something that we did wrong. But the secret is to think like a man in this situation, because it's not what they did wrong, it's what the voters did wrong. The voters just voted wrong. So this is one instance where reframe the way that you were thinking.
Change your soundtrack.
Yeah.
Change your soundtrack.
You didn't do anything wrong, the voters just voted wrong. I will also say, though, that a lot of growth comes from losing, right? I could see how I grew as an individual. I pushed myself to do things I never would have thought possible, that I was uncomfortable doing before. I'm so much better at my job now. I have so much more empathy for my candidates. I give better advice. And so don't let a fear of losing scare you from running for office. Like, you can actually end up in better places once you've lost, even than if you win.
I love that. I love it. That's great advice. I'm going to add to this one. I remember running for school board, and by the time all of the provisional ballots came in, I lost by 5 votes. And it was so interesting because at the time, as someone who's I'm a strong person of my faith, and I really believe that God wanted me to run for office. And so often you go, well, I lost. Did I hear wrong? What happened a year later is there was a bond issue in which there were many people in the community who did not want that bond issue to pass, and there had never been a bond issue that had failed in the history of that school district. But because I had ran, those people came to me and asked me to help them defeat that bond issue, and we did. It was like a David and Goliath situation. And so when I thought it was about me being on the school board, it was actually to build that name recognition and credibility with these people, because I was a transplant, for them to have credibility with them in order to really achieve what they wanted, which is to have that bond issue defeated. So it just be open to sometimes what a loss really is. And it was a victory for that community. We've got about 5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? Anything? All right.
So I have a question. So I work at a nonprofit, and we help to get young conservatives elected to state and local office. We have way more applicants that are men than women. So I wanted to ask what your thoughts were on how we can better recruit. Right now we're going to conferences, conservative-leaning conferences that bring in a lot of different young people there, but they're still men. So how can we think like outside of the box to recruit better?
I'll start. So if you use, this is the classic situation where men lean in and women say, I'm not prepared. This is going to take one-on-one. So I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at resumes, of what you can learn about the potential people that you'd like to run, but it's going to take one-on-one conversations to get them into the races, I think. Anything to add?
I trick them, right? Like, I don't invite them in to run for office. I'll invite them in to support an existing candidate or to work on a campaign or to do something else. And then once you've built that relationship, that's when you have that one-on-one conversation that it's actually you that we need in office.
I love that. Well, that's not a trick. That's just,
It's a tactic.
great question. And I think, sometimes it's just going to where they are. I mean, it's a lot easier. You may feel awkward being the person that you don't know anyone versus them just showing up at some event that they don't know anybody. And so whether it's sororities or it's some Habitat for Humanity event or whatever, where you know that there's a lot of people who may be doing some community service, that's how I would kind of approach that too.
Women want to be asked too. So remember that. So sometimes instead of volunteering, they're waiting for someone to say, well, you're the perfect candidate, and be asked. So, and you may have some misfires on that, but it's worth it to try.
Yeah. Great question.
And sometimes candidates too. I
You want
mean,
to use the mic?
oh, yeah.
That's fine.
Go to candidates who, what I've learned in kind of the work I'm doing right now on the ground is candidates have these like really incredible volunteers that, I think as a candidate, sometimes you're like, she's gonna be something. She's gonna, and start there. I mean, start talking to some of the candidates running now. Ask them who's on your campaign, who's working hard, who are your volunteers, who are the women who are out knocking on doors and getting their friends to go vote and are really getting the community excited because they've been working with these people for months now on their campaigns.
Love that. Well, I want to thank you, Abbie, Mia, and Ann, and ladies, and those that are here and those that are watching. I hope you took some nuggets, wrote them down, those little treasures. And so we want to meet that goal of what, 75% in positions of office? Is that what our goal is, 3/4? But I think all of these things are just reminders to us. Don't always wait to be asked. Step forward, because I think what was really evident, there was a comment that was made at the dinner last night. We are very fortunate in this country as American women that we have the ability to put our names on a ballot, and we don't have to worry about the safety of our homes or our children in our communities. We can run for office, and there are many women across the globe who do not have that same freedom. And I think in honor of them, we need to step forward and do our part as an example. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Have a